Hi, my name is Sylvia Liska-Durrell. I'm a button collector. It has been a couple of decades since I first visited the Warther Museum in Dover, Ohio. I was impressed with the button house, but I was not very into my hobby of button collecting at the time. Visiting now, after spending the last few years learning about buttons, was such a wonderful adventure. I hope that you can vicariously enjoy my visit to the Warther Museum and Frieda Warther's button room through my photographs and think about visiting it yourself sometime. Located in Northeast Ohio, the Warther Museum is 20 minutes from Akron and 75 miles from Marietta or Cleveland. It's less than a quarter mile off of exit 83 off of I-77. My daughter and I came from Columbus, which took about 2 hours. Here's what you get for the price of admission. A self or guided tour of the museum that contains more than 64 hand-carved replicas of trains made from ebony, ivory, and walnut. Plus, you'll get to see the Warther's collection of 5,000 arrowheads, the Warther cutlery making shop, and of course the button house. It is $13.50 to get in, but I think I can speak for a lot of button lovers when I say that is a small price to pay to help support the ongoing display of these treasures. Our first stop after buying our tickets was to the ladies' room. I didn't expect it to be decorated with button panels, but it was. Amazing. Moonie Warther was an incredible talent. His father died when he was a toddler, so he began working at the age of 5 as a cowherder for the neighbors. He continued doing that through the age of 14, getting only a second-grade education. The story goes that he found a penknife in one of the fields he spent his long days in, and his whittling began. His true-to-life working models of locomotives took him to appearances on The Tonight Show, Mike Douglas Show, and tours across the country. The photos show just a bit of his work, including the beautiful miniature replication of the funeral train of Abraham Lincoln in the upper right. The Warther Museum has been open since 1936 and is deemed priceless by the Smithsonian Museum, called a AAA gem attraction, and 5-star TripAdvisor attraction. It is truly something all members of the family can enjoy. Here I am getting ready to enter Frieda Warther's button house. It is right outside the main museum. It was early November when we visited, so I missed seeing the beauty of her Swiss-styled flower beds, which are still maintained as an attraction. Walking into the house was stunning. 4 walls and the ceiling covered with perfectly executed button designs. It was overwhelming. 73,000 buttons, all placed by Frieda Warther. I became giddy and giggly, like I had just won $1 million lottery. My daughter couldn't believe my reaction. Close to the entrance was a panel that showed Mrs. Warther's tools and some photos of her process. The first panel that caught my eye was this one. A placard says that Frieda brought these hand-painted ceramic buttons with her when she came to the United States as a young girl from Switzerland. The buttons date back to the mid to late 1800s. I think we can assume that these buttons inspired her to continue to collect. Here's a quick look at some of the panels. I apologize about the photography not being very sharp, but the buttons are behind glass. Here's one that after I calmed down a little bit I took detail shots of. This one is a treasure. A placard on it titled Mrs. Lincoln's Button says, "In the center of this beautiful brass button panel is the button from Mrs. Lincoln's gown worn at her husband's second inauguration. A close friend of Frieda's had given the button to her for safekeeping." I love blingy buttons, and there are some beauties in this panel. This design features a photo button. A placard reads, "In the early 1900s, it was a custom to have a boyfriend's or husband's photo on a woman's coat button." The center button on this frame contains a photo of Moonie as a young man. This depiction of a Goodyear blimp is made entirely of Goodyear rubber buttons. My quick count of the buttons is a total of 415. The first design contains calicos. Next are vegetable ivory, etc., with lots of whistles. And then horses and metal vanity or logo buttons, shell buttons, colored glass buttons with a close-up. This vase with button stems and flowers looks almost Picasso-ish, doesn't it? A few more detail shots and one more of Happy Me. Now we'll head into the Warther's home, which is right next door. The fall foliage was still beautiful on this first weekend in November. The two-story brick house has been refurbished to its original look and furnishings. A cozy parlor, typical late 1920s kitchen furnishings, Mrs. Warther appears to have separated her types of buttons onto strings, some of which you can see hanging here in her sewing area. Heading out now. I highly recommend a visit to this unique button house. I can say that I will never forget it. And I'll be back to take more time to examine individual buttons more closely. I hope you've enjoyed my photos of the button house and that they have inspired you to visit there and to support other button collecting related enterprises. If you'd like to contact me, visit my website or Facebook page.